Good morning, everybody. I have a short paper that I expand on everything that I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. And send me an email and I will send you a PDF of the paper and the slides. In the red on this first slide here, Parental Alienation.edu is about a year and a half old. It's an Irish organisation, and our goal is to educate judges, lawyers, clinical professionals on everything we're discussing today and to try and build best practices. We have two conferences in April. We have one in Dublin, which is on the East Coast. That's on the 21st of April. And we have one in Derry, so the northwest of Ireland, on the 23rd of April. And I'd like to invite everybody here and also those listening online to come to Ireland for what will be a really excellent conference. Also on this website, you will see an article that went live today. It's a case note on the PSIA decision. PSIA versus Moldova, decision of the European Court of Human Rights, given in October 2019. And in that case, a mother who was alienated from 3 of her children was awarded €12,000, €4,000 per child. And that's maybe the high point in alienation litigation or jurisprudence in the Western legal world at the moment. I think it's interesting that sitting in a parliament building where politicians are judged by the public, the trial of the public opinion, lawyers don't have such a trial. We are subject to codes of conduct, and these are implemented by our regulatory bodies. So if we breach our code of conduct, we will have to repay our fees, we might have to pay an extra fine, and we might also lose our license to practice law or be disbarred. What I'm going to do now in this talk is to look at 2 things. Who are the people who are being alienated? And why are they getting lawyers? Or even, do they need lawyers? Or why should they get lawyers? But if the first few talks today haven't convinced you, this is an area which Dante would summarize as saying it's almost absent of hope, very bleak. Writing 550 years ago, he warns us to abandon hope. And I know from my experience in this area, over 8 years of dealing with people, parents who are alienated, both mothers and fathers, and they are living in their own private hell. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it stays worse. And the challenge for everybody here today and everybody listening online is, how do we work together in Europe to build a solution? And this is what the case is about. 1 child, maybe a baby, maybe a number of children. And where they have a mother and a father who have separated using this private element, it applies very same to the state taking the children, but looking at this private analysis, where the mother and the father split in an ideal world, the issues of conflict between mum and dad circumvent the child, leaving the child completely unblemished by the issues between the mum and the dad. Maybe issues about money, debt, who owns the house. But of course, this isn't the reality. In the reality, these issues sear and cut right through the child to the extent that they are effectively imprisoned by the conflict. But this is only one layer of the issues, the inter-parties issues. There is a second layer. Once a case is commenced, we have the issues of delay, which we've heard about. You might have a good judge on one day and who is on your side, and a different judge the next day. And between judges, they apply the law inconsistently. Of course, we are a fan of the right of appeal, but maybe if appeals are endless, then maybe that takes away a degree of certainty that parties and children need. Busy lists, the courts find it very difficult to allocate time to cases. And we have an issue, how can we discuss the issues in this area of law if we cannot talk about it? The privacy or the in-camera nature of family law. And I heard yesterday a colleague was fined over €100,000 for discussing his case in public. Very traumatic. And then we have a third layer. We have this professional issues, these ethical issues where the clinical expert maybe makes a mistake, or the lawyer, there's a breakdown in trust with the lawyer does something untoward. And these issues layer upon each other, and I published a paper on this last year, 2019, at the Irish Conference. And the question is, in this situation, it's almost impossible that the child will out, the child will win the day and have their voice and their rights vindicated. It's very difficult. So legal ethics, we have as lawyers a duty to our client. The fundamental issue here is that lawyers need to prepare, give enough time to prepare, so their client can make an informed decision. But perhaps by its very nature, litigation requires maybe in an hour, the parent will decide, do I fight the case? Do I take maybe one or two options? And it's almost impossible to have a client that is fully informed of the decision. That is an ethical issue in these cases that is very difficult for lawyers to circumvent. We have an obligation to the court not to mislead the court, or we could be disbarred. Our colleagues. Today I might be for a non-custodial mother and my friend is for the father who's custodial. But the next day, the shoe might be on the other foot. And the issue is that we advance our case to the best of our ability, but we have to remain respectful of each other. And this is the first of two wow moments in my talk. Lawyers in Ireland and the UK owe a duty to the children in the case, a child they have never met. And if you think of a lawyer as an abstract construct, we know nothing, we know no facts, but for that which our clients tell us. My child is so-and-so, my child is so-and-so. So the real issue here is, if lawyers owe a duty of care or a duty to act in the best interests of the child, but our instructions come from a parent, they might be the custodial parent or the non-custodial parent. This creates almost a logical dilemma, a conundrum. Can we second guess this? But this is the challenge that we live and work with. And I've expanded in my paper the issue of time. Time is not on the side of the non-custodial parent. All the custodial parent has to do is kick the ball down the line. Or if you're 1-0 up or 2-0 up in a game of football and it's 88 minutes, you take a water break or you slow the game down. And this is what is happening. And this compounds the status quo. When the decision is delayed, then the status quo, the alienation, as Caroline discussed earlier, this continuance is furthered. So my last two slides, the two most important parts of my talk. We have a picture here, a fairly famous picture of a gentleman who's addressing the judge himself. His lawyer is sitting down, silent. His lawyer is letting his client tell the story. And this happens to be a man in this case who maybe has seen better days, but he is telling his story. Often as a lawyer, our job is to get out of the way of our client, to have them say the facts. But it can even be a struggle to get to this point. They can be lonely. They have this instinct that is not being met to be near their children, to look after them, and this results in all sorts of issues. And maybe they do find it difficult over a year or 2 years, the case is lasting, to be disciplined, to listen to the advice. Maybe they will show up some Friday night or some Tuesday night to see the children, and the next day that's a terrible thing that they have done. But the second wow moment in my talk today is the issue of capacity. Do people who are subject or are living in their own private hell, can they give valid legal instructions? And I have no answer to this question. I've seen maybe a dozen times in the last 5 years where I didn't know, and I'm not qualified to assess if somebody is compos mentis, if somebody has the ability to say, this is what I want, and that is a true reflection of their desire. It's very difficult. Do they have capacity? At what point in a very difficult day, might be 2 years coming for this fight, at what point during that day should the lawyer say, look, I don't think we can do this because I don't think you are well enough? And that's not patronizing, but that's just what we're talking about. At some point, you have a client, perhaps who lacks capacity. So goes his story. We often have to manage the expectations of our clients. You might not get a reverse custodial order today. And then also on the other end of the spectrum, and I was speaking to a client last week who after 6 years and spending, I think, in or about €100,000 to try and get one boy back, he walked away from his case 6 years after fighting, almost facing bankruptcy. And again, I don't want to labor the point, but even the question, do lawyers help? Maybe not. I think there's a study of last year, December last year, that says in domestic violence cases, actually having a lawyer is a disadvantage. So I invite you to read my paper and these slides and maybe assess for yourself, do you need a lawyer? And what should you expect from your lawyer if they are trying to help you? So to conclude, my article is published today on this Moldovan case. My email address is there. I'd be delighted to answer any questions by email. My paper and slides will be available digitally. And thank you all for your attention.